choice you make, not something that just happens.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the GlobalAIBootcamp 2019.
Thanks so much for joining us at over 125 different venues across the globe on December 14th to host these events.
Walk away today is that we can use AI to solve everyday problems. It doesn't have to be a giant problem. In fact, AI nowadays is really more focused on task-oriented things. So I would encourage you to look at little things that you can do to help improve, to help maybe reduce the overhead or help people make decisions by sorting out the stuff that's obvious. Don't try to replace people with AI. It's not ready for that yet. We'll be talking today about Azure Cognitive Services. There's lots of other services out there that are available. My favorite is obviously Azure Cognitive Services, and it's really easy to integrate with Sharepoint framework. And the other thing that I'd like you to walk away with is I look a lot longer than actually I am. So let's see if that works. This should actually find, yeah. So this is actually a pretty cool thing. If you went into Mentimeter and you filled a survey, there's people filling surveys now. So most people have either already done some stuff in AI or have plans to do stuff in AI. That's pretty cool. And I'm hoping that by the end of the day, those 3 undecided will be convinced that it's probably a good idea to start going. The other one is how many of you have coded using Sharepoint framework? So we've got a few people that said what's Sharepoint framework. That's fair. And then a lot of people haven't done anything in Sharepoint framework. So I'll make sure to change my conversation a little bit to help them. The session today is actually going to be, talking about using Sharepoint framework in artificial intelligence. I will show code, but I will explain how it works. But if you're looking for the code is available on a GitHub repo. It's also going to be part of the Microsoft SharePoint WebPart samples repo coming soon. But that's the URL, the QR code there for that sample. The code is available. It's the exact same code that you'll see a bit later. AI and this solution has also been a great source of embarrassment for me before, because a couple of years ago, before I actually converted it to use Sharepoint framework, I had built this pretty much the same solution for a large higher education college in Ontario. What they had is they had students that were submitting their photo IDs. And keep in mind, those are the same people that we have to tell them don't eat Tide Pods, right? So those people were uploading pictures that were completely inappropriate. Genitalia, people of cats, people of kids, pictures of kids, all sorts of different pictures. And they had a person that was reviewing these pictures, a full-time person. That's just all they were doing was reviewing pictures to approve them. That was not real efficient use of their time. And then they were copying the pictures to a file share, and then they were uploading it to the printer. It was kind of bad that we had to do this. So I built a solution for that college, and Microsoft heard about it, so they wanted me to present this thing to the Microsoft executives. And it was a session that was online and it was recorded. And before I had started preparing for this, I wanted to demonstrate, well, I need to show gory pictures, I need to show racy pictures, I need to show real pictures, pictures of hats, the same pictures you'll see today. Unfortunately, when I was searching for racy pictures on Bing, every time it was returning me pictures, I was running through the AI, it never found it as racy. So I figured I'll just turn off the filter so that I can find racier pictures. And trust me, I tested this functionality extensively, by the way, with my WebPart. So I downloaded some, racier pictures, but I forgot that I had left the filter off. So here I am presenting to the Microsoft executive the session that is recorded and being shown around Microsoft. And as I'm talking, I'm saying, now we'll go find a racy picture. So I just typed the same search query that I had typed previously, except I forgot that the filter was off. So out comes a page full of porn for the executives, and I was not necessarily paying attention to what I was doing because I was talking. And so there's porn on the screen, and yeah, so that's what I'm famous for. So I promise no porn today. I'm sorry if I disappoint you, but we'll be showing this later. All right. So, I mean, this session is really about, well, this whole event is about AI, so I don't really need to tell you that the AI is all around us. But I want to show some examples, real-life examples of AI that already exists out there, and some that you could use in your own code. So, if you've ever used, Siri or Google Assistant, or you've used your credit card, the banks actually use credit cards for fraud analysis, right? They identify irregular patterns using AI. If you've used Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or any of the other things that I'm not cool enough to use, they use AI to detect what you should be interested in. Because what they're trying to do, they sell advertising. They're trying to get you to stay there as long as possible and to keep scrolling. So they use AI to find out what's going to get you to keep scrolling. Same thing with Netflix and all these guys. If you use Ring or Nest or any of those doorbell systems or those cameras, they use AI to detect the people that you know and detect shapes in the camera to be able to say, hey, there's a car in your driveway, there's a raccoon in your backyard, things like that. What else do we have? We've got, if you use your phone, you could use maps, email, pictures. Those all use AI as well, because your maps will try to find the best way to get to a route. Your email will use it for spam detection, and your camera will use it to help better focus the picture. Right? Those are all uses of AI that more likely you've used at least one of these things in there. And even within Office 365 itself, it's starting to use AI a lot, especially PowerPoint now is using it to try to figure out, what's the best way to design this slide for you and things like that. But it's going to start being used even more widely for things like, if you haven't heard of Project Cortex is going to be that thing that will replace Delve and user profiles, and it'll start actually making sense of what people know by looking at the knowledge footprint that they leave behind, like the documents they worked on, the projects they worked on, and things like that, and trying to understand the context of that, and trying to come up with kind of a self-generated wiki page of different topics in your organization. So when you mouse over, let's say you have a project, and I think the example they use in Project Cortex is they always talk about the project core. So when you mouse over that project name, it'll actually pop up a window that shows that, hey, this is what this project is about. Here's the people that know about it. Here's the documents that are related to this. And this is not something that's manually catered or anything like that. It's actually something that it figures it out on its own. This is pretty powerful. So what we'll talk today is this. This slide here is actually when you go to the Microsoft AI Azure website. This is the URL. It shows you some stuff here. And all the stuff I'll be showing today is actually using an AI subscription. So to get started, you click on Start Free right there. Oops, sorry. Right there. No, doesn't want to do it. Technology. This is not using AI, by the way. So you click on Start Free. The first thing it asks you is for your credit card. But you click on that, and then it'll offer you a whole bunch of choices. And I'll show you the choices in a minute. Let's switch. And the choices that you have here are the different services that are available. And you can see there's lots of services. And if you attended my colleague's session in this room earlier, he actually did go through a a lot of these services as it pertain to Power BI. But I'll actually be showing you a lot of these services, or talking about these services more in a how do you use the code for this. Now, I want to make it clear that what I'm talking about today is using code to use these services. There's lots of codeless or low-code options that are available as well. And I am the world's laziest developer, so if I can find a way to not have to write code to use these solutions, I will. But this is where I found that I needed to kind of break the boundaries of what was available in the codeless environment or no-code environment, and had to write my own code to do this. So here's some of the services that are available with AI. The first ones are vision, speech, languages, search, and decision. Let's talk about vision for a second. So vision, you have things like computer vision, which is what a lot of this demo is going to be about. We're actually going to use AI to analyze a picture and tell us, how appropriate the picture is, whether it's a portrait picture, and different other things like that. In the sample that I'm showing you is actually I've reduced a lot of the logic in analyzing the picture, but in the version that I did for the college, I actually, because I know the person that's uploading the picture and I know their student profile, I can also make sure that they are the right gender, they have the right age, because I want them to upload a picture of their kids or things like that. Of course, they can't say, hey, this says you're a man, but you're really in our systems, you're a female. We can't do that. So what we have to do in that scenario is we have to start flagging pictures that are potentially should be rejected, as opposed to saying, hey, this is completely wrong, right? You're the wrong age, you look way older than you should, or way younger. Facial recognition is another service that's available where you can use a database of faces and then start recognizing the people in those faces. So one of the things that we wanted to try with one of the programs was actually use facial recognition to do attendance. And there's a reason for that. It's not just to keep track of who's not showing up. It's because in higher education, especially schools that use or that allow a lot of international students to come in and invite a lot of international students, think of the stress that's happening to students where they're coming to a different country, different culture, different language, usually away from their family, often for the first time. And then on top of that, where they're stressed with, learning a new way of studying, all these things add up. And then, starting dating and, learning more about themselves. There's a lot of suicides, or a lot of, thoughts about suicide. And one of the indicators of someone who's at risk is actually when they start not showing up, they start not turning in their assignments and things like that. So that was the reason why we were considering using facial recognition to start taking attendance, not, again, to be Big Brother, is to really try to help predict that. We used a different approach to do that, and I'll talk about it in a minute. And then ink recognition. It even works with someone like me who's been working in IT for over 30 years. I don't write a lot, but when I do, the ink recognition is actually able to recognize the text. Aside from vision, there's speech. And speech, those are the regular ones, right? Speech to text, text to speech, speech translation, and speaker recognition. Those are all services that are currently in use. If you have tried Microsoft Teams, there's some really cool features that are available now. It's able to do, right now, this is available if you're on a first release tenant, you can turn on live captions. So as you're having your live video meeting, it's actually writing the captions at the bottom of the screen. And you can translate that text real time, or nearly real time, and it will actually put that text in different language. Now think of, again, a scenario with students, for example, that are coming from a different country, and they're here to learn the English language. How great would that be to be able to actually watch a class and then listen it in English, but actually have it translated to help you learn that language. Or people with cognitive disabilities, right, who need a bit extra time to be able to understand the context, or people with accessibility needs who can't hear to be able to do this. Right? And this is something that if you work for a Canadian company or a company in Canada, you will have to start considering things like accessibility, right? You can't, very soon you won't be allowed to just have a video out there on your internet that's just for your, here's the Christmas video, and it doesn't have any captions, it doesn't have any text. You're going to have to start thinking of alternatives for everyone. So those are all cool things that you can do with these services. Language. So language, one of them is text analytics or sentiment analysis. Now, it's not quite perfect yet. I'm autistic, so when I guess I have trouble sometimes reading language, reading emotions and conveying emotions. I remember writing a blog one time that I was really angry, and I wrote the blog that was just furious. And I got so much feedback about that blog post. People saying, "That was the funniest blog I've ever read. It was so funny. Thank you. Please keep doing this." I'm like, no, I was trying to tell people, that they were being stupid. But I guess it was funny. That explains why my wife always makes fun of me when I get mad. But text analytics here can help again. For example, in that college, and I'm not just going to use examples of college, but this is one place where we got to leverage AI to help a lot of people. But in that college, we actually wrote a bot, because we found that studies show that over the next 3 years, people will start using bots more than they will use apps, because it is a more natural interaction. People are more comfortable just asking a question in natural language and get an answer that sounds more human. And they kind of forget that it's not a human behind the scenes. So we wrote a bot that allows students to ask questions like, what time's my class? Where's my next class? How do I get to my class? But also, I need help. I need help with an assignment, or I need financial help, or I'm broke, or I'm hungry, or things like that. And it would, because it knew who the user was, it would actually be able to give a catered response to that student with things like maps that would appear and directions to follow maps and things like that. But the other thing that we did is we used sentiment analysis so that we could start detecting if the students started getting a bit more dark in their sentiment, when they started being more negative and talking about potentially killing themselves. And again, I know they know they're talking to a machine, but sometimes they just need to talk to someone, whether it's a machine or a human. So what we were able to do is start tracking this change in sentiment and be able to start flagging. Maybe this is someone that we should start pointing the conversation towards. Hey, why don't we put you in touch with your advisor? Your advisor's online right now, and we know your advisor. So why don't we start having a conversation with your advisor? And if we can convince them, then we can switch the conversation with the advisor and hopefully kind of remediate that issue. Search. Lots of cool stuff for search. Spell check, Bing search. I know that a lot of people use Bing search, but Bing search is actually doing a lot of really cool stuff. And as you heard earlier, they're starting to change Bing search to cognitive search, so that you can start understanding really the question you're asking, not just the keywords. Auto-suggest is something that's very cool. And the entity search is actually something where we can identify entities in text and things like that, and be able to find these entities. This is something that has been available for a long time. I remember working with Watson AI to do entity identification in text and things like that. But this is something now you can do. So a cool example of that, worked with a law firm that was indexing all the acts and regulations from all the jurisdictions that they work in. And they were using entity analysis to find all these acts for all jurisdictions and start being able to draw parallels between this act in Ontario relates to this act in BC, and here's the differences. Or here's the impact that 9/11 had on this act, because right after 9/11, I don't know I never realized this, but using this tool, we found that after 9/11, there's kind of a wave of acts that were changed across the board, and not just in Canada, but all over various countries, where laws were changed to start kind of taking measures against things like 9/11 happened again. And this is something we would have never been able to notice, by just looking at stuff. So it's very cool, and to be able to actually just type in like something like influenza, for example, and understand, how influenza is actually something that affects a lot of laws. I know it sounds like it would just be health laws, but there's actually a lot of laws that talk about things like flu and things like weapons and things like that. So it's a great way. Again, I'm not trying to say you need to replace humans with AI, but this is an example of you could never ask someone to go and look for all those similarities because they wouldn't be able to read all that text all at once. All right, and decision. So decision is anomaly detection and personalizer. So anomaly detection is one that I like a lot because, again, I'm super lazy. I don't like testing things myself. I certainly don't want to be doing random samplings of things. So if I can use anomaly detection as a way to say, well, anytime I get data in, start doing anomaly detection and identify the things that are potentially different for me. It's not necessarily that it's going to be an anomaly. It's not necessarily going to be fraud. But it certainly helps say, hey, wait a minute. All these things are, it's supposed to be a list of provinces, and this one's a state. So, hey, this is not normal. This is someone that entered wrong data because it's supposed to be Canadian addresses, right? Let's look at vision. Okay, so vision, again, this is, I'll actually do this slide, but this is the QR code if you want to go to this page. This page allows you to test images and things like that. So let's go. Well, I thought I had a page. Okay, so what you can do with this, and this is actually, we're going to be doing this in code very soon. But again, I'm too lazy to write code. I don't want to test stuff by writing code if I can avoid it. So I'm going to go to this page as often as possible, try to see how it does things, and then try to steal as much of their code as I can. So if I look at, I'll just go look for a picture of someone. Now, this is actually shameless plug. I had originally planned on using this page because it's got all sorts of pictures of people that are like MVPs in the community. And then yesterday, they put me on there. I was not planned. I mean, I'm not ashamed to show it, but I was not planned. So let's just pick someone here. Andrew Connell, good-looking guy, really awesome in the community. I took the URL to his picture. And I paste this here. What it should do, assuming that the demo gods are with me, oh, come on. Yeah, see? That's how you know it's a real demo. All right, I'll pick someone else's picture. So this is my boss. And I was surprised when I did this that it actually found that he's a celebrity. So this is a picture. It identifies the elements in the page. And the one thing that it's doing here is it's using a pre-trained model. It knows what a tie looks like. It knows what a face looks like. It knows these things. It doesn't necessarily tag things and highlight everything. But as you can see in the list of things that are found on the page, and hopefully the font is big enough for you to see. But look how it says, this is a person, this is a male, dress shirt, blazer, so on and so forth. And everything has a level of confidence around it. Again, this is AI, this is not perfect yet. So it doesn't 100% know that this is really a tie or a person. But you know, it's got a pretty high confidence. Although it says he's not too sure it's a male, but I won't point that out to him. But see, the interesting thing that this he was really happy with is see how it actually found his name, John Zeri, wearing a suit and tie. That's pretty cool. One day I hope to be able to be recognized in that. So I can take all sorts of pictures like this, and you know, we're able to leverage this, right? Now, once I've tested that I'm able to get the results I want, and I encourage you to play with this, especially because that page is free, so you can play with this, you can test pictures without having to have a subscription. But eventually you're going to have to create your own subscription. So you go to the Azure AI and you create a subscription. There's different versions of subscriptions, and Microsoft changes it every 5 minutes or so, so I'm not even going to bother trying to explain the pricing. And you need a PhD in licensing to understand. But and so it gives you an API key. Don't worry, I will erase this API key later. But this is the API key that you will need for every call that you will make. And then it also asks for a endpoint. I guess I should use my fancy clicker. Right there, it asks for an endpoint. So earlier versions, it wouldn't let you create a custom endpoint name. You have to use like, you know, Canada East or East US or Eastern Asia, Azure, blah, blah, blah. Now it's actually allowing you to start creating your own endpoints. So those are the two things that you will need for pretty much every calls. And then if you go down a little bit, you have the API console. And if you click on it, you will get to something like this, which is actually documenting all, this is again just for the vision stuff, but this is documenting all the APIs that are available in the computer vision stuff. Now all the other services that I talked about before, sentiment analysis and all that stuff, they all have a page like this. And if we have some spare time and you'd like to see a specific service, we'll play with that. So you can go here and you can do things like you can analyze pictures, you can arrange a whole bunch of files, describe an image. First thing it'll ask you to do is to pick where your endpoint is going to be. So you know, you would select Canada, probably. By the way, someone in the previous session, someone was saying, hey, the previous speaker was using two different sentiment analysis endpoints. One was the Power BI, and one was the Azure, I believe. And he was getting different results. I can tell you that even, because I did this presentation in Singapore a few months ago, using the Singapore endpoint, or the Eastern Asia endpoint, and the Canadian endpoint, I was actually getting different results. I was a lot older in Eastern Asia than I was looking here. I don't know, again, if it's just biased by sampling of data, or if it's just different endpoints, but just understand. And in fact, what you'll see when I rerun this demo that said earlier that it was 44, I think now it says I'm 47. So, I mean, I have been drinking a lot of coffee today, so maybe that's what's happening. Okay, so if I actually click on the endpoint, then I get to this thing here. So I'm running analyze an image. It's going to ask me for my resource name, so I put my resource name here. And then it's going to ask me for my subscription key, which is the API key that you saw earlier. That's pretty much all I need to do. Now I can actually just provide a picture. Now this is interesting. Earlier I was trying to use Andrew Connell's picture, and it said it doesn't support this picture. Let's see if it supports it this time. The other thing that I'm going to do here is the details. It's asking what kind of details I want right here. So these are all the things I can ask it in the API. Is it an adult picture? Is it, you know, what brands are there? Categories, colors, description, space. So examples of why you would use things like colors. That particular college that was using the automatic detection, they had very strict policies about the types of pictures you could upload. Excuse me. You could have a portrait picture, like a passport picture, and it had to be on a light white background, light blue background, gray background. It had to be color, and so on and so forth. So So by using the color analysis of the picture, we're able to actually identify the major colors in the picture and things like that. What else do we have? Types of images. Again, this is the Typepod eating generation. They were submitting pictures like hand drawings of themselves and things like that. So by using the image type, I was able to detect whether it's an illustration or a real photography. And then objects and things like that. So objects, this is actually a cool example of this. They were looking at spending a lot of money to try, because what happens is in that college there's a Tim Hortons. It is probably the slowest Tim Hortons you've ever seen. Like, I've been there before they opened. Like, I was the first person when they opened. By the time they served me, the donuts were already a day old. That's how slow they were. So because of that, and imagine I was the first customer. Imagine when there's a lineup of students whose classes all start and stop at the same time. What's the first thing they do? They run, as soon as the class ends, they all run through Tim Hortons and then they line up. And then the faculty and teachers, they wanted to be able to go line up when there's no lineup. So they were looking at putting all sorts of very expensive systems to calculate queues and things like that, but they had security cameras everywhere. So we just used the same APIs to actually take a random sampling of pictures through the security camera of the lineup. And the security camera already had signs that says you're being tagged for security purposes and all that stuff. But we were able to just count the number of heads of people waiting in line. And we could actually tell you at any point, how many people were waiting, but also we could start doing stats of, when's the busy times and when's the quiet times, which was very cool, because even Tim Hortons couldn't do that with their own analysis of transactions and things like that. So it's one very silly sample here, but that's one way you could use this. Okay, so let's use, I don't know, who else should we use here? Don't want to use me. I see me every day. That's painful. Okay, by the way, if it says anything embarrassing about April, let's just keep this between us, because I haven't tested this yet. All right. So it says this is April Dunn. Oh, so I'm sure she's a celebrity as well. So this is a close-up of April Dunn, and here's the tags that have come in the picture. So this is actually what we're going to be using for this. The tags and the object detection. There's another scenario where you could use tags and object detection. With the image or vision APIs, you can actually also do shape and object detection in videos. So imagine a scenario where, again, I'm using a college sample, I'm sorry, but that could be used in any other scenarios. You have security cameras. You can actually automatically track for weapons, fire, knives, entering in the security camera field, and automatically detect them a lot faster than the security guard group. Especially in that one college, they had, it looked like, when you see movies where they're landing, on the moon and stuff, and they have, screens everywhere. They had so many screens because they could see every single part of the college. And then they had one person kind of looking everywhere the whole time. I bet when that person goes home, they probably don't watch TV. So how do you do that? Other than having a whole bunch of people just monitoring the cameras, how do you do that? And it turns out the only thing we could really do is you could use it to record and then go back in case something happened. It was not really for prevention. It was more for legislation, I guess. To protect themselves. But imagine if you use this instead, and you're able to say, well, hey, I just saw a firearm, I just saw a knife or a fire, to be able to quickly flag that as something you should pay attention to. Again, we're not trying to replace people. We're trying to help people make better decisions. Okay. So now, if you know how to make this call, and oops. So if you look at the logic here, it's actually telling me everything I need to do to make a call. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do all the things. We could do adults, categories, colors, description. So adult, categories, It works better when you type it right. Color, description. That should work. We'll use April again. Okay, so see now it's starting to return a different subset of information. So it is not an adult picture, here's the dominant colors and things like that. It's very cool, right? But if you look at what the API is doing, it's actually telling you how to request the call. Let's go back here. So this is telling you this is the URL you should call. And this is what the request should look like, including the headers that you need to include in your call. So that, up until now we've been using web browsers and little tools like this, and we haven't been using code, and I'd like to continue that as long as possible. So let's use something called Postman. How many of you use Postman? Okay, good. So Postman, for those of you who don't use Postman, Postman is a tool. It started, I think, as a Chrome extension, but now it's something you can install on your desktop. And it allows you to emulate HTTP requests, HTTP posts, and things like that. So you can actually test calling APIs without writing code, which is right down my alley. So if I go back here, it just says a little boy looking at a camera. Hopefully that's my picture. Okay, so I pick another picture here. We'll take Auntie. He used to live in Canada, now he's back in Finland, I believe. So if I make the same call, again, all I did here is I copied the HTTP request that it told me to do. In my headers, I actually put the information about the API key, things like that. And then in the body, I just pasted the picture that I want. If everything goes well, we should get a picture. There you go. Again, so Auntie was keeping his clothes on, that's good. Here's all the details, the caption. Oh, he's not a celebrity, okay. And it says he's 37. You notice, by the way, when it detects the objects, it gives you rectangles. This is how you do the cool, cheesy animation that says, here's where the eyes are, here's where the mouth is, and things like that. By the way, if you ever do something where you search for faces in a database, by law, you have to make sure that it shows the face one at a time on your screen. That's just by law. I'm just kidding. I never understood that, by the way, why to do that. Okay, so now that I've been able to do this, and I've been able to demonstrate that I can actually make HTTP requests by doing this, I can start using the Sharepoint framework or using my own code to do this. So the Sharepoint framework, for those of you who are not familiar with it, there's a few people that are not familiar with it. Microsoft has been changing their development model every, whatever. I mean, just imagine how long it would take you to learn a new development framework for Sharepoint, and that's how long they take before they replace it for you, right? Just to keep you on your toes, I guess. But with the Sharepoint framework, what Microsoft decided, they said, you know what? We're going to go open source. We're not going to do the Microsoft only thing. We're going to do something that embraces the standards that everybody else does. So it's not going to be just C# code that you need to have the secret decoder ring to be able to write a SharePoint web part. This is what we're going to do with the Sharepoint framework. Is we're going to use things like Node.js, and we're going to use TypeScript, and we're going to use React. We're going to use Yeoman instead of Visual Studio Wizard. Yeoman, by the way, is the scaffolding engine, I guess if you could, that allows you to create templated solutions. And then you can just say yo, and then the name of the solution type, and it will actually automatically create the project for you based on that template. So that's pretty cool, because before, to find a SharePoint developer out there, you had to know kind of this weird beast that knows API calls, knows behind the scenes data stuff, but also can do a good job at doing some kind of user interface stuff. And usually that's like a unicorn, right? You can't have someone that knows user interface user experience and that knows data and APIs. So you usually ended up with something that either didn't work very well or didn't look very good, right? But what they've done with the SharePoint framework is Microsoft has said, you know what, we're going to take what people know out there. We've got lots of web stack developers that know Node.js and React and all these other cool technologies, and we're going to leverage that skill. And there's tons of, if you're familiar with Node, there's something called NPM or Node, horrible acronyms, Node Package Manager, I believe, that allows you to actually drop packages inside of your solution to say, hey, I really want this cool drag and drop interface, or I really want this cool chart, like pie chart interface, or any kind of cool things that you want to add to your solution. There's probably a Node Package Manager, an NPM package out there that you can use. So that's cool because now we're not asking people to rewrite all that code themselves. They can leverage the work that other people have done, leverage open source solutions and lots of really cool stuff, and then build that in their solution. And because it's using standard things, SharePoint framework developers don't need to be SharePoint experts. It's bonus if they understand SharePoint, but it's more like if you can take a web stack developer that happens to know how to call APIs, they can just learn the SharePoint APIs or the OneDrive APIs or Graph APIs, which is, and we're actually seeing a lot of adoption with the SharePoint framework. And if you have questions about how to get started with SharePoint framework, I'm happy to stick around after and give you some links and examples and things like that. But if you've been putting off developing for SharePoint because, again, you're being annoyed by how often they change the model, this is a model that's been around for a lot longer than most models so far, and it's actually looking like it's getting ingrained a lot deeper into Microsoft. They're starting to use the SharePoint framework now to develop for Office applications. So you'll be able to use the same stuff to write a SharePoint web part or SharePoint add-on to do your Office, like your Word, PowerPoint, Excel add-ons as well. And then if you're familiar with the Power Platform or Dynamics, you can actually write controls for PowerPoint, Power Apps, or Dynamics that uses something called the PCF, the Power Apps Control Framework, which is actually very similar to the SharePoint framework model. So again, to be the world's laziest developer, if I can learn one thing and reuse it across the board, across multiple systems, this is awesome. I strongly encourage you to do that. So, the sample that I wrote is using a web card. And I apologize, I know it's really kind of annoying to see all this code there, but I just want to show you the first thing that I did here is I created my own analysis services. And then my analysis services, I made, all I need to do is I need to make HTTP calls where I get the pictures, and I'll show you how it works in a minute, but I get the picture from the people who have uploaded, and then I take that picture and I call it the exact same way you saw me do before. The only difference is that I'm not uploading the picture to a public website, right? So I don't have a URL that's available to give to the API. So what I have to do is I have to use something called base64 encoding, where I can actually take the picture, create a data URL for that picture, that I can actually pass the whole picture to the APIs. But if you look at, how many of you have made HTTP requests or things like that in Node, right? So you have to deal with the asynchronous. Because you don't want the people upload the picture and then they click OK, verify the picture, and then it has to wait because it has to go to the internet and it has to do all sorts of stuff. You don't want it to start freezing the screen, right? You want this to be able to say asynchronously, I'm going to go make the request. While you're doing this, I'll entertain you. I'll do a little animation or something, right? So most Node solutions and most SharePoint web parts will use a similar approach, where you use an asynchronous request, you go get the stuff, and then when it comes back, you start displaying the results. But to do that, usually you have to start dealing with things like promises and things like that, which can be scary for a lot of people. So what Microsoft did is they actually created packages that make it easy for you to do this. So again, those are Node NPM packages that you can use. One is this one here, which is Azure Cognitive Services - Computer Vision. So you can actually go and say, in your web part, you can say add this package, and I'll call this package analysis in-stream response. So now instead of me having to hard code in my solution, oh, this API is going to return me a JSON file, it's going to look like this is where you're going to get the tags. They have done all that stuff for you. So that's a bonus. And then the part about calling the computer vision API, I have a computer vision client here that allows you to make the call. And I also have an API key credentials that, again, Microsoft provides for me. So the whole part about authenticating myself with my API key, verifying the API key, it does all that stuff for me. So I got rid of all that code, I was able to leverage this. And then, what I have to do here is I can so what I do is I create a base 64 version of the image, which probably looks better if I don't have the toolkit. So I actually create a base 64 URL, so I can pass the image without having to put it on a public website somewhere. And then I can create an array for this, and then I call the computer vision client. So the cool thing about this, again, I don't have to make the HTTP request. It will take care of that for you. The only thing that it needs is the API key, which you saw before, and the endpoint. Now here's the problem. If I want to start using API keys, those API keys, anybody that took a picture of my API key before, over the next half hour or so, you could probably use my API key to start making requests, and that's all going to go against my credit card. But that's not good. But so that means I don't want to give that API key to anyone. So if I create a web part that requires an API key, I don't want to hard code it when I distribute it, especially the sample is available. So I don't want you to have my API key. And probably the organization doesn't want anybody to just start, copying the API key and sending it to their friends and stuff. So how do you do that? Well, there's this really cool feature that a lot of people don't know about. In SharePoint, you have the ability to actually store attributes to the tenant level. So for example, if I have the API key, I can actually take that API key and I can store it at the SharePoint level and say, here's my API key. Any web part that wants this API can use it, but I'm not ever going to give it to the users. Users will not be able to copy and paste the API key. How do you do that? Sorry, I have the sniffles and it just started as I started the presentation. So there's this tool called Office 365 CLI. So CLI is command line interface. And what it allows you to do is allows you to actually go make commands from any machine, Apple, Linux, Windows, and I can actually do commands to SharePoint. And one of the commands that's available, I'm going to switch back to my presentation quickly. One of the commands that's available is SPO storage entity set. SPO for SharePoint Online. Storage entity is that thing that it uses to store the different attributes, and then set allows me to set that variable. So in my code, I use the app catalog, the key, and the value. And so in my example, this is my own tenant here. So I go to my SharePoint, app catalog. I call this Azure key. If only I had a pointer. There, you call this Azure key. And then I give it a value. That's not the value, by the way. And then same thing with the endpoint. So I just call the endpoint. So now, by storing this at the SharePoint level, every web part that I have that needs to make API calls don't need to have anything hard coded. I can just leverage that. All right, enough talking. Let's actually demo stuff. I know I get excited about the technology and I get all geeky and realize that I should probably show you what the web part does. Right? So this is the web part. It's currently running from the code that you're seeing there. So I can upload a picture. Let's just take this person, and then I can allow them to copy this and you submit. Now remember, because this is an asynchronous call, I can do gratuitous animation. By the way, the first time I demoed this, like, never mind that I'm demoing something that will calculate people's age and recognize whether they have clothes on and everything. The most impressive feature for people was that animation that was doing like this. So this actually says this is a woman, she's 27, she's a female, and things like that. If I change this picture a little bit, let's say I do this. Let's see what it does. Because one of the requirements that I have for my picture is it should be a portrait. So it says here, wait a minute, this is not a portrait picture, this is not a passport picture. Let's use different pictures. All right, I promised some racy images, right? So here's a racy image. That's as racy as you can do without being flagged by Microsoft again. So submit that. What it should do here is it should say, nope, that's not a good picture. Because it is, well, first of all, it's not a portrait, but it's also a racy picture. I'm not going to demonstrate the adult picture, if you don't mind. But let's do this. Right? And this is what I look like when I don't have coffee. So this should probably say it's gory, right? Now, but wait, if you order now, you'll also get the ability to do this, where what I did is I actually set up some attributes in my web part, where you can actually say, you know, do you want to allow clip art, line drawings, racy images, adult images, gory, and all that stuff. I can also put forbidden tags. So for example, I don't want them to use hats or sunglasses. So if I put hat here, and I take a picture, has a hat. I think I have one with the hat. There you go, this guy looks like a hat. I do this, and I hit submit. Oh! It didn't find the forbidden hat. Well, see, it says right here, man's wearing a hat. So I guess I made a bug here. It usually works. It just doesn't work when I make a demo, obviously. Let's just do hat. This could be actually because of poor coding. I'll also forbid beards. Which, let's see if that works. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you know what? Probably in my code, I'm not assuming that I'm going to put one tag, because every time I've tested this, I've tested multiple tags. So that was cool. And by the way, you know, we use this again in the college. We were able to detect sunglasses, hats, but we could tell the difference between hats and religious wear, for example, which was great. So let's do. Does anybody want to volunteer and be part of my have their picture taken? I need a volunteer. All right, come over. We'll demonstrate the webcam as well. And for some reason, it insists on using this camera that way. So if you can stand here and look at the camera, pretend you're happy to be in the session.
I haven't seen.
Hopefully, do you mind revealing your age?
Let's see.
And you're wearing clothes. That's good. It says you're 38 and you're male, and you only have one face. That's good. So is that somewhat accurate? Again, it thought it was
no, 40.
So yeah,
41.
That's good. So so this is actually, I'm running out of time here. I have 3 minutes left, and again, I can go deeper in the demo, and we got a break between the sessions if you have any questions. But the whole point that I wanted to make here today is that, you know, I've given you some samples, real life samples of scenarios where we use AI, where we're able to solve small problems and sometimes life-saving problems by just helping focus on the right things. This is not a life-saving problem. This is more helping, if people can spend less time approving pictures and they can spend that time talking to the students, for example, that's where we're adding value, right? So the real version of the solution that I did, or the way it works is, it submits the pictures and it automatically rejects the ones that it knows are guaranteed to be wrong. But then it submits them to a library where the reviewer can spend 1 day a week, maybe about 5 minutes, and it sorts the pictures based on confidence. It is confident these pictures should all be approved, and it automatically says you should approve them. And then the ones that it thinks should be rejected automatically marks them as potentially rejected. They can override the decision, and then they can say, okay, accept all the decisions I've made. And they can actually automatically email the students saying, your new picture is here, blah, 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 come pick it up. So a really cool way to automate systems and services. All right, let me switch back to the end of the presentation. Oops. So thank you, everyone. The code is available, thank you, our code. Again, it'll be available in the Sharepoint framework, web card samples, Microsoft Repo. That's my Twitter account, and that's my blog. Please don't be shy. I'm a geek. I love coding. I love helping people. So if you have questions or we need help because you're trying to learn Sharepoint framework, tweet me, go to my blog, and message me. Don't call me. I don't even answer my wife's phone calls. So don't call me. And thank you, everyone.
A huge thanks to all the organizers who made this event possible. So organizers, please get up, and attendees, give them a big round of applause.